It's Monday, six days until we face the Jacksonville Jaguars in basically this franchise's most important six-game stretch. Let's go back to the Caldwell era. We've got to be able to look, as you and me basically being general managers, and say, hey, here's what we got to do to make the playoffs. Here's what we have to do, and assess as far as getting ready for next year's free agency and NFL draft where our team is. Let's talk about all these factors and maybe just a little bit more in today's Lions Talk Live. Well, greetings and salutations to everybody out there in YouTube land. I'm your host once again, Dan Thornton. And I think, like we talked about in the opener, the Lions have some very interesting things for us all to consider going into the final 6 games, the final third of our season. Is Jared Goff going to be the quarterback of the future? What do we need to do with the NFL draft? What's our realistic expectations from these final games for a playoff push? A lot of things to take in and for us to analyze, and I figured today, since it's a little slower news day, this is as good a day as any for us all to have a conversation about it. Before we get into it, though, if you haven't yet subscribed to Lions Talk Live, please consider taking 2 seconds from your day, hitting the subscribe button. Go ahead and leave a like, thumbs up, whatever you want to call it, and leave some interactive comments with each other and me in the comment section below. Some of you guys have been doing this for months, and I've gotten to know you guys. We've had some good chats. Let's keep that going. But now, let's jump into today's Lions Talk Live. Let's focus at first on this season, the chances of us making the playoffs. You know, who knows what's going to happen? The Lions got a lot of good fortune yesterday as far as certain teams pulling off upsets that not only helped our potential playoff push, but our draft capital as well, as far as our pick with the Rams, which now sits at number 3 overall. Potentially it could go up or down a little bit more in the next week or two, but for right now, we've got the number 3 pick plus the number 13 pick. The Lions, thanks to some upsets yesterday, went up to have just a 2.5 game trail from the 8th seed in the playoffs. It'd probably be in our best interests if New York or the Commanders finished at our same record, because obviously we have the tiebreaker over them. But I'm going to put on my hat as general manager Brad Holmes and say, hey, while I'm sitting here and letting Campbell and staff push us towards the playoffs, what do I need to focus on? And let's start that conversation with the lightning rod of all lightning rods for the Lions. That's Jared Goff. Last year, when Ben Johnson took over as OC, the final 6 games, Goff actually played incredibly well. He was the number 4 quarterback per Pro Football Focus over that stretch in all the NFL. He took care of the ball. He was scoring touchdowns. His completion percentage was high, etc., etc. The start of this season, I think we all can agree, he played lights out. And then the Dallas game happened where he had 2 picks, 3 fumbles. He became a mess. He had a stretch where things did not go well for him. But we, as general managers, have to be able to say, do we need to draft his replacement, look in free agency after these 6 games, or are we going to ride or die with this guy? Here's my assessment after looking at the data from last year and then this year. He had his strongest stretch at the start of this year and last year when all the receivers were healthy and on the field. That gave him a plethora of weapons that he was able to manage and take care of. Before the stretch last year, he fell apart basically because the Lions didn't have a receiving staff. And then this year, once the receivers got injured, same results started appearing. So what that tells me, if now that the receivers are getting healthy, can we see good Goff return? Good Goff, I don't think he's going to be a top 10 quarterback in this league. You've heard me talk about it before on Lions Talk Live. I think he's somewhere between 15, 18, and maybe 12. But doesn't mean he can't have moments where he gets better and unfortunately moments where he gets worse. My question is going to be when Jameson Williams hits the field, which Dan Campbell reported today in Monday's presser. He didn't think Romeo Okwara or Jameson Williams would play against Jacksonville. He said he hasn't ruled it out, but he's not leaning that way yet. What I want to see from Goff, though, once J-Mo hits the field, St. Brown's healthy, Reynolds is out there, Shark's out there, does he return to good Goff? Can he potentially even rise above number 10 in the league to, number 8 or 7? Because if he can, I think the Lions can not only make a strong push for the playoffs, but I can now use that draft capital with that number 2, 3, 4, 5 pick in next year's draft to either trade down or shore up some other areas of concern with the Detroit Lions overall roster. Topic number 2, if I'm Brad Holmes, I want to assess over the rest of these final 6 games, is the coaching staff. We've talked about it ad nauseum over the last year and this year. They were rookies last year. They're starting to develop last year. They've gotten better in areas this year. But like the Buffalo game where I kind of slammed them for clock management, some of the play calling, especially when they were trying to make the last minute rally and take the lead, and they go for it on 3rd and 1 with a bomb for the 3rd time this year, and all 3 didn't work out. What can we say at the end of the season about the coaches? Do we feel like over these last 6 games they've improved even more? No, they don't have to be perfect. No, they don't have to be the best coaches in the league. But if we're going to ride and die with them, if we're going to keep them all, can we say as a general manager that they are clearly progressing, and I have faith they will continue to do so in year 3? If I have that faith, then Dan Campbell probably isn't getting as much pressure to change some, the other coaches beneath him. If we can say, hey, Ben Johnson, you've figured some things out, and I get there's rumors saying he's going to be a head coaching candidate, I'll believe it when I see it. Doesn't mean he won't, but he's not gone until somebody signs him. And same with Aaron Glenn. I think Aaron Glenn should get a lot of praise because he has resurrected this defense. I think another interesting piece for us all to consider is the secondary. A year ago at this time, we all pretty much agreed Jeff Okudah, just wasn't reliable. The first year he came in as a rookie, he had some injuries from college. He eventually had to sit out and get those corrected. Last year, unfortunately, he has the Achilles injury, robs him of virtually the entire season. But now in year 3, and now that he's played every game, yes, he did miss the Thanksgiving Day game because of concussion protocol. He's basically been available to us for an entire year. It looks like he's going to play this upcoming weekend, and he has progressed to be, in my opinion, our number 1 corner. Aaron Glenn, if he is going to remain, clearly wants man-to-man players in the secondary. He wants them to be physical and hard hitters. Both Okudah and Jerry Jacobs are Jerry Jacobs, by the way, already out of concussion protocol. He's good to go for this weekend. But they're basically twins of each other. Size-wise, speed-wise, etc. These guys excel in what our defense wants. So I have to assess as Brad Holmes, what does this defense still need, and what do I need to go out and get, whether in free agency or the draft? So it's my opinion if the Lions are going to focus, and we'll see what happens, but let's just, for now, assume the 2 first-rounders are going to be spent on defense. I think you got to get more pass rush, and it's got to be somebody who can not only rush the passer, but help out against the run. As you probably know, if you watched yesterday's video and the Thanksgiving Day game video, I love James Houston. I've loved him since we got him, but the problem with him is right now he's a 3rd down pass rush specialist, and one that should have been on the field, in my opinion, from day 1. Yes, he is not great in the run game defense, but you can still use him in packages on obvious passing downs, so he needs to get in there. Assuming we need somebody more consistent, though, who can play both, that's going to be an area I really want to target. The linebacker core is another area, and then possibly a 3rd standard defensive back, somebody that I know that fits the bill of Okudah and Jerry Jacobs, from the size, the length, and the upper body strength. When those 3 guys go to jam somebody at the line, which we want to do as a D, can they displace the receiver and knock them off the route or balance in the first 5 yards? That's what I'm targeting. Now, let's assume for a second that we don't go with defensive players in the first round. What would we want to assess from these last 6 games as far as what does this team need? My opinion is another receiver and probably an offensive guard. The strength of the team is the offensive line on offense. I think it would behoove them to really shore that up, especially on a rookie-friendly contract. You're going to have to probably replace Decker in a few years, so why not get that replacement piece now that somebody could potentially move to right tackle in time when we have to move Sewell over there to the left side. Might as well start thinking ahead, proactive versus reactive. That would be my opinion. Again, sticking with the scenario in this situation, if we go for 2 offensive players in the first round, it'd be my guess, hey, I know probably isn't anybody going to want to hear it, but I would probably go for a running back at that point. It would be my opinion, if possible, we trade down to maybe get a later first round selection, maybe pick up a second in that scenario too, and use one of those on running back. If we can get that scenario to play out, probably use one on running back and one on tight end. Offense should be fairly sound then, since you've addressed the offensive line, running back position, etc. And, I know Lions fans want to replace Goff, but it's my opinion you get a better value going for somebody like the Florida kid. I don't remember his name offhand, but he reminds me a ton of a Josh Allen. He's got the size, he's got the arm strength, he's got the mobility, but he needs more time to develop. My guess is if you can get him in the second round, maybe pushing third round, you could sit him on the bench, let him, Goff groom him and the coaching staff groom him for probably 2 to 3 years. Goff has run his timetable with the Lions. He's gone, and now that guy is able to move in. And again, I apologize, I don't remember his name, but if you look up the Florida Gators quarterback, that's the one I really like. So other things for us to assess with the Lions' final 6 games. Who's going to go? You're not going to be able to keep everybody. Romeo Okwara, I think, is playing for his career here in Detroit. It'd be my opinion he's probably going to lose that. There's just a lot of young talent that I think is going to be able to take his spot. Maybe I'm wrong. I get he's got another year, I believe, on his contract, but I believe these are probably more than likely his final 6 games here in Detroit, and you're going to see him get replaced. Nice player, good player, but he didn't have a great season last year. Then he got injured. He took forever to get back this year. I just think they're probably going to look to save some money, spend it on other positions, spend it on upgrades that are a little bit younger. Unfortunately, that's reality in sports. You get hurt. No matter how much super glue you put on it, it's never going to be the same. And he's also starting to get up there in age a little bit. So if I'm Brad Holmes, I'm looking to get better and younger and cheaper. Now, as far as the playoff push, though, let's take this into consideration. The Lions have got to maintain. And what I mean by that is when we go on the field this upcoming Sunday against Jacksonville, to me, that becomes the biggest game of the season. Hopefully, Lions coaches and players respond to that and say, hey, this is our Super Bowl. A win here, I think, galvanizes the team and will help propel them into the following week's game. A loss here, though, and I think just from the emotional letdown, you lost 2 games in a row in that scenario. You now are aware you've probably gotten almost no shot at making the playoffs. Because in my opinion, you're going to have to win out of these last 6 games. You probably got to win 4 to have any chance. If you win 5, you probably got a good chance. You win all 6, you're in the playoffs. There's nothing that's going to stop you in that scenario. So the Lions have got to face this big must-win game Sunday. They win it. They're going to stay in it another week. And I think they're going to have a much better chance to get a second and third win. My prediction from the start of the season was 6 wins. I think that's still where I'm going to stand with, but a win Sunday, and maybe they start talking 7, 8 wins if they can string things together, get healthy, and get people on the field. So real quick, jump back to Goff. You heard me talk about some of his, strengths as far as, he's consistent. You know what you're going to get from him. He's going to have moments where he peaks up a little bit, moments where he, sputters down a little bit. I will say this from the coaching staff. One of the areas I think they've helped Goff improve is his pocket presence. He used to do this roll out to the left, whenever he started feeling some pressure, the spin move, and I just thought it was ridiculous. But since the Cowboy game, he has clearly gotten a little bit better at staying in the pocket, allowing the offensive linemen to do their job. He steps up a little bit, not great, but he does a little bit more than he used to. And he is going through second, third receiver options, finding somebody. If he can continue that over the 6 games, then you've seen he's really improved upon it. Now, can you get him to hit some of these deep shots? He struggles greatly, in my opinion, anything over 20 yards. He just doesn't seem to have that accuracy. And with J-Mo coming to town, I think that's going to be something, whether it's Goff or whoever next year, is got to be able to hit that pass because it is going to open up the Lions offense like we haven't seen probably since the 90s. The other thing we're going to have to talk about is DeAndre Swift. These final 6 games, is he going to be somebody that we all think he can be? A playmaker out of the backfield, whether it be running and catching? Or is he just going to become, part of a mixture of backs? It's my opinion Campbell and staff are leaning more towards a hammer back. Somebody come up, while he's not going to break the 50-yarders or 60-yarders like Swift, he's going to be reliable week in, week out, and that seems to be Jamal Williams. Whether they stick with Williams or try to find another replacement that is similar to them, that will be the question. DeAndre Swift, I think everybody in the league is aware of what he can be, but everybody in the league is also aware how brittle he has been during his NFL career. Is anybody going to give him a big contract? Probably not. Not when you're talking about somebody you don't know if it can be out there even half the season, let alone 2/3 of a season. So that'll be another area for us to target and watch. Same with the tight end position. Well, James Mitchell and Brock Wright, look like players that we can lean on going forward. We don't have to draft a tight end in the NFL 2023 draft. If that's the case, then maybe we just fill in somebody for the 3rd position for depth, and we can focus draft capital on other areas of immediate need. All right, well, those are my thoughts for today. Slower news day. I wanted to give you guys at least a couple thoughts to chew on. So me, for these last 6 games, while we're all pushing for the playoffs, I'm going to be sitting down and evaluating positions, players, and some of the depth. My goal is that when the season's over, I want to be able to go to my board and say, hey, I'm going to do some videos on what I see here. Who's got upside? Who's, kind of petered out as far as this is probably as good as this athlete's going to be. And I want to share those with you guys once I've gone through that process, given grades and assigned, a rating scale to everybody. I think that would be something for us all to kind of consider as we start preparing for free agency and the draft. And hard to believe that's not very far away, only a few months. So anyways, hope you all enjoy your day. If you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. And I'll see you all tomorrow on another Lions Talk Live.